Hey everyone, we all hear about the incredible, mind-boggling wealth of the Mughal Empire. But today we're going to look at a source that asks a pretty critical question. Where did all that money actually go? And let me tell you, it's a perspective that might just challenge a lot of what you think you know about their economic impact on India.
Okay, so let's just dive right into the central puzzle here. On one hand, you have the Mughal Empire, celebrated as one of the richest in all of history. But on the other hand, the source we're examining asks a really tough question. How could the world's wealthiest empire rule over a population that was described by people at the time as just deeply, deeply poor? It's a huge paradox, and it's the question that kicks off this entire explainer.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the core idea of the source, something called the drain of wealth thesis. Then, we'll get into the specifics, the actual ways the source claims wealth was flowing out. After that, we'll see what it says the impact was on India itself. And finally, we'll wrap up with the source's final verdict on the whole system.
All right, let's get right into the heart of the argument. It all revolves around this one powerful idea, the drain of wealth.
So what does the source actually mean by that? Well, it defines the drain of wealth as this systematic, continuous process of siphoning resources out of India. The whole theory presented is that the Mughal rulers consistently sent money and treasure back to their ancestral lands in Central Asia and to the broader Islamic world instead of, reinvesting it back into the Indian subcontinent.
Now, what's really interesting is how the source tries to separate the Mughals from earlier rulers. It says, yeah, they declared independence, they stopped sending official tribute to a caliph, but, and this is the absolute key to its argument, the sending of tributes had ended, but the one-way flow of India's wealth kept going west in different forms. So the idea is that the official reason might have changed, but the fundamental direction of the money, that stayed exactly the same.
Okay, so that raises a pretty big question, right? If all this wealth was leaving, how exactly was it happening? Well, our source goes into a lot of detail on the specific ways this outflow supposedly occurred, which we're going to explore right now. The text we're digging into breaks it down into four main channels. First up, you've got huge personal and family gifts being sent to relatives back in Central Asia. Second, there was religious patronage, like footing the bill for the massive Hajj pilgrimage. Third, there was major diplomatic spending on embassies from other countries. And finally, direct cash support for holy men living abroad.
And to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, let's look at the very founder of the empire, Babur. The source quotes the historian Farishta, saying that after his initial conquest, Babur sent so many gifts abroad that he was nicknamed Kalandar, which basically means a wandering beggar. I mean, he apparently sent treasure to relatives all over Central Asia and even gave a silver coin to every single man, woman, and child in Kabul.
Let's try to put a real number on this. The source points to one single Hajj caravan that Emperor Akbar sponsored back in 1576. It carried a donation of 600,000 rupees. Now, to put that into perspective, the author notes that a barber's wage at the time was maybe half a rupee a month. We're talking about a truly colossal sum of money leaving the treasury for just one event.
And this wasn't a one-off thing. According to the text, the pattern just kept going. It claims that Aurangzeb dropped nearly 3 million rupees in only 7 years on gifts for foreign embassies. And the source doesn't frame this as smart diplomacy. It actually calls them, in its own words, merely begging expeditions from the Middle East and Central Asia.
So if that's the kind of money flowing out, what was the effect inside India? This is really the other side of the coin. And yeah, the picture our source material paints of the impact on the local population is pretty grim.
The source's whole argument really boils down to taxation. And when you see the numbers side by side like this, it's pretty stark. It claims that while some earlier Hindu rulers might have taxed farmers around 16% of what they grew, the Mughal rate was often double or even triple that, somewhere between 30 and 50%, plus a bunch of other fees on top.
And what did that mean for the average person? Well, the author leans heavily on accounts from European travelers like Francois Bernier. He was there and he wrote of what he saw as a tyranny often so excessive as to deprive the peasant and artisan of the necessaries of life and leave them to die of misery and exhaustion. This kind of first-hand account is used by the source as evidence of widespread poverty.
Okay, this slide right here might be the most powerful example in the whole source. It's all about priorities. Under Shah Jahan, you see these monumental costs, tens of millions of rupees for the Peacock Throne and the Taj Mahal. Now, look at the number for relief during the horrific famine of 1630 to 32, just 100,000 rupees. The article presents this as just a jaw-dropping comparison of where the money was actually going.
And the human cost of that famine, which the source directly connects to policies like high taxes and scorched earth warfare, was just staggering. The author cites an estimated death toll of over 7.4 million people.
And for the source, maybe the final nail in the coffin is this point about infrastructure. It claims that while the Mughals never built any major new irrigation canals in India, in the 1780s, a Mughal subordinate state used its funds to build the massive Hindia Canal in what is now Iraq. The argument is clear. Indian resources were being used to develop foreign lands.
So, when you put it all together, what's the final verdict from the source we're looking at? Well, this last section sums up its conclusions on the long-term legacy of this entire economic system.
The article uses some really strong language here. Pulling a term from the economist Angus Madison, it calls the Mughal system a parasitic state apparatus. The claim is that you had this huge, non-productive class, the court, the army, the harems, all their dependents, estimated at 21 million people, who basically just consumed all the wealth that everybody else was producing.
So to wrap it all up, the source basically makes 5 big accusations. 1, that they acted like a foreign occupying dynasty. 2, that they systematically drained wealth out of India. 3, they neglected crucial things like agriculture and infrastructure at home. 4, that they showed contempt for their Indian subjects. And 5, that this whole system left the peasantry in a state of absolute misery. And to really drive home that idea of a foreign mindset, the article points to this pretty shocking couplet. It was supposedly written on a wall in Delhi by one of Babur's top commanders. If safe and sound I cross the Sindh, blacken my face ere I wish for Hind. The source presents this as direct proof of a fundamental dislike for the very land they had just conquered.
And so, that leaves us with this big question to think about. The source we've unpacked today makes a very provocative claim, that the Mughal state wasn't an organic Indian empire, but an occupying power that systematically drained India's wealth. So the question for you is, how does this story of extraction square with the popular narrative we so often hear about a Mughal golden age?